Michael Hudson is the founder of Bitstocks, a London-based Bitcoin investment company that's been in business since 2014, long before Bitcoin SV was born. But today, Bitstocks is only supporting Bitcoin SV and is committed to bringing what it calls Bitcoin to the masses through its trading app, Gravity. I talked to Michael about Bitcoin trading, Gravity, and his ideas about the kind of transformation that he sees Bitcoin bringing to the world.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
So Michael, thank you very much for doing CoinGeek Conversations.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, now let's talk about Bitstocks, your company. For people who haven't heard of it, I read on the website that its basic mission is to simplify the process of investing in Bitcoin. Tell me a bit more about how you do that.
So, Bitstocks and the advisory desk is what you're referring to, is what we started off with. That was back in April 2014. And the mission really was back in April 2014 was, this is a great new innovative technology. It's got great promise to bring transparency and clarity to our financial systems. Let's spread awareness. Let's make people understand what the technology is. Let's help people understand the pre-existing financial system for what it is. And let's explain to people in a way that everyone can understand, whether you're a hedge fund manager or a warehouse manager, in the same breath of why is this technology important? How does it fit? And then get financial exposure to that technology. And we took care of the whole process as a turnkey solution.
So an institution or a rich individual would basically come to you like they might have gone to a stockbroker in the past or something, and that you would handle everything for them, right?
Yeah. In fact, I actually remember our first ever brochure for Bitstocks, and we had a old school traditional image of an old stock trading floor, right? And I remember the strap line for that page on the brochure was bringing back that human touch. And that is something that we felt at the time with so much confusion, and I think that confusion has just climbed over the years.
Yes, because in the old days, your sort of middle-class stock investor would get their stockbroker on the phone and have a nice chat or go out to lunch and something.
Absolutely, right? And especially when you have a new technology like Bitcoin, for me, I have a philosophy of I learn to teach and I teach to learn. So for me, if I feel like I've got knowledge on the subject matter, I can only test it by regurgitating it to other people. And if you have someone who, say, a 70-year-old individual, 60-year-old individual, which conventionally people wouldn't put into the box of being a Bitcoin investor, well, why can't that person be a Bitcoin investor? Well, maybe it's how you've articulated the subject of Bitcoin, that you can't get it on the back of, say, a Post-it stamp and say, okay, this is why this is important. And it's a great challenge for me as an individual to be able to learn how to articulate the message of Bitcoin to such a diverse client base and diverse group of individuals. And I feel like now that early initiation of our business model has helped me now communicate to a wider, broader audience, because everyone wants to get it. And I think everyone needs to be treated with an equal amount of respect of where their state of understanding is. And if we can't get over that hurdle of even explaining Bitcoin, then I think there'd just be a huge challenge of implementing Bitcoin at a much larger scale.
I mean, we'll come to the more sort of mass market end of your business in a minute, but just before we leave the question of the original business model, these personal brokers, I mean, one thing that impressed me was that they only get compensated out of the profits, if there are profits, of their clients. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no per annum management fee. It is a remuneration based on, if I make you money, then I make money. So our pockets are aligned. And the inspiration for looking at business in that way really does come from what I feel is one of the most genius aspects of what Craig has done with Bitcoin.
Craig, right.
Is the mining model. I think the mining model is beautiful in a sense that it takes human beings' desire to profiteer, ultimately commoditizes greed and converts it into a security model, right? And that transcends age, color, creed, race, religious beliefs, the whole lot. Because whether you're in Afghanistan or whether you're in the UK or America, you're not going to set fire to your own wallet. And I found that not just interesting, I found that inspiring. And applying that to our model is definitely an inspiration that stuck. with Bitstocks.
Right. So obviously in those early days you were working with what we now call BTC, the first version of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And now you're very much in the Bitcoin SV camp, right? Exclusively, or how do...
Exclusively.
Right.
And it makes it a bit of a contentious subject matter because people ask me, why is my handle still BTC Hudson? And my number plates, I have ending with XBT representing Bitcoin. And to me, that just signifies where I came from, where this journey came from. I'm never going to change these things.
Right.
But yes, we are firmly Bitcoin SV. Why? Because Bitcoin SV is Bitcoin. And that's become such a term that gets thrown around by the SV community, and people brush it off as a result of that, thinking it doesn't come with any form of credence. But when you really understand not just the technological aspect, you really understand the core mission of what Bitcoin is, and how it can deliver, and how it could become something that is a irrefutable measure of truth for every interaction on the planet. From a technical aspect, take all the brands away. Only one of the 3 SHA-256 algorithms can fulfill that. And that right now is under the acronym of Bitcoin SV.
But to play devil's advocate here, the emphasis in the community of Bitcoin SV isn't on buying the coin in order to accumulate because it's gone up in value. But as I understand it, that is still the service you offer to your customers in the way that you did right at the beginning. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So how do you reconcile the idea that actually what would probably be best to get BSV adopted in many different areas would be of just price stability, which wouldn't actually be the best for your clients?
Absolutely. So we've got a long way to go until we've got price stability, right? And there's a whole wealth of opportunity leading up to way to price stability. But the most important aspect, if you trawl through, say, my social media, my posts, videos that I've posted out there, I've never been a guy that's been aggressively speaking about the price. Right? I can very confidently say that on camera, that people could go through all of my social media content. I've never been a pumper of price ever. And the message that I've always put out there is technology, technology, technology. Build, build, build. Understand what it's here for. And what people are ultimately investing in is the infrastructure of ultimately the new world. That really is the true potential of where Bitcoin can go. So from an investment standpoint, absolutely, people need to get exposure, but understand why you need exposure. Otherwise, it becomes a gamble, it becomes a punt. And this is what we had really 2017, 2018, early stages fueled with. And I had my Uber driver recommending me all of these different coins. Right?
Well, but supposing this, recently there's been a massive increase in the price of Bitcoin SV. If I was on the phone to my my personal broker at Bitstocks,
take principle
when it was right up, and I said, well, quick, we better sell this now, what would my broker be advising me?
Well, principle, yes. So we have advised certain investors take principle out. You've got an opportunity to do that.
What do you mean principle?
So principle will be if you put £10,000 in the market, your portfolio is now worth £20,000. You pull your 10 out, now you're in risk-free.
Right, I see.
So taking out your risk, your cards on the table, or your chips off the table.
So everything in this is profit, basically.
Then you've got profit there. But really and truly a difficult aspect of, especially where we are right now, I guess, if we're going to stay on the subject of price, we're in no man's land. Bitcoin SV has never been here before. We had a reference point of Bitcoin Cash as to where we can go to in terms of price, but we breached that reference point. So now we're in no man's land. The only thing we could look at is Bitcoin, but that's quite a steep mounting.
Well, Calvin Ayre, in his post at the beginning of the year on CoinGeek, he's the owner of CoinGeek, as you know, he predicted that the price of Bitcoin SV would be the same as or more than that of BTC by the end of this year.
I think that's fair. I think there's definitely a lot of logic behind that, but then devil's in the details, right? Is Bitcoin coming down to SV or is SV going up to Bitcoin? Right? It's going to be somewhere a balance of the two.
Right. Okay, so scenario number 2, supposing I've just signed up with Bitstocks and I've got some money to invest and I speak to my broker today when the price is right up, would they be saying, well, hang on, perhaps we'll just wait till it comes down a bit?
Yes. Right now, with all the hype and the fact of what I just said, being in no man's land, You'd want to wait until the market resets itself. We get a new real reference of measure.
Right.
And that really is an important aspect of the service that we provide there. Is a lot of people are very much fueled on emotion. What our job is to do, good day, bad day, is to stay neutral.
Right.
And just provide that clarity and understand that it is really, to a degree, around capital preservation as well. That's the number one rule to invest in, which many people forget about. Preserve capital. Rule number 2 is get return on your capital. But preservation is a really important aspect. And I think 2018, a lot of lessons were learned across the board. Even lessons for us were learned as well. So
when the price went shooting down,
just very aggressively blew a lot of steam off the market. And this is where having your own compass of discernment and your own voice is really important. Really, really, really important. Which is why we say it quite a lot on our own media channel, that irrespective of what subject matter it is that I'm speaking on, I don't care how authoritative I sound when I speak on these subject matters, I should never be taken as 100% authority. That you should take ownership on your own state of understanding and just
But when it comes to the price of Bitcoin or virtually any cryptocurrency, however much of an expert you are, it's pretty much hopeless trying to predict what's going to happen next, isn't it?
Yeah. Traditional models are very broken, and that for us at Bitstocks really sharpened our appetite to be like, we have to build an ecosystem. We have to do it, cover from end to end, whole ecosystem, to provide a new real standard of conducting business in this space that's legally, lawfully compliant, and it's got sight of attaining that on a global scale. Because I don't want to be associated with the dodgy activity that's happened out there, irrespective of how big the golden carrot may be, what they dangle. Is if you really understand the technology, you know you're shooting yourself in the foot. Even for 100 million being dropped on your table, you are shooting yourself in the foot if you genuinely understand where this is going.
I mean, I think in a way, there's a real problem with that OneCoin scandal. I don't know if you came across that podcast the BBC did. It was really interesting. And I think people who don't know anything about the industry at all, they find it hard to distinguish between a sort of risky investment that is legitimate and a complete con scheme. It must be hard for you to draw that line somehow.
Yeah, it's not hard to draw the line because I'm quite outspoken.
Yeah.
But whether people or not take heed to that message, that's a different subject matter. And all we can do is make ourselves heard, but whether or not people follow through on that, at the end of the day, they are in control of their accounts. So if someone says, look, I'm doing it, I want 50,000 because I want to go invest in something elsewhere, it's your money. I'm not stopping you.
Right.
I can give you my advice if you ask for it and my opinion, but ultimately it's completely up to you what it is that you wish to do with your own funds. And there were a couple of scenarios where some of these scams were really getting quite sophisticated, where we had some of these scenarios play out at Bitstocks, and all we can really do is hope that people listen to our advice and follow it through. Some people didn't, and eventually later on they realized they should have, and a lot of people did.
Right.
So it's difficult when you've got an industry that is so new that anyone who can speak well sounds like a genuine, intelligent authority. And someone that you trust, because you then feel like you've missed something.
Yes. The fact that there is all that sort of stuff to be avoided in the industry, at least it gives you as Bitstocks a really clear role and a job to do, doesn't it? If everything was squeaky clean, you'd be there would be less work for you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is why I say, and I maintain, I genuinely believe that our media arm of Bitstocks is such an important component, because this is about, our philosophy is 3 E's. Educate, empower, evolve. Educational aspect is why we built and established and continue to build aggressively Bitstocks Media. Empower is our gravity ecosystem, our tool of sovereignty to help people achieve financial sovereignty. And the evolve aspect, I haven't really spoken about much, but that's about, okay, what can we do as a company, organization, a collective to entice people to join us on this mission for the betterment of humanity? and to invest in technologies that are in the betterment of humanity. Because I've said and I've maintained quite aggressively that Bitcoin is one component. There are other things required in coordination and combination with Bitcoin that really will have some massive breakthroughs for humanity. And
what sort of things are you thinking
energy,
of? Right.
Is
everything has to begin with E.
Yeah, that's very true. There we go.
Let's just go back to your second E, which was empower, and that is in relation to your Gravity app. And I see that it's advertising itself as bringing Bitcoin to the masses. So if I sign up for Gravity, what do I get and what can I do with it?
So right now, Gravity is in beta. It's open for UK residents. Very soon it'll be open towards EU residents as well. Right now with Gravity, you can sign up, get onboarded and funded within 30 minutes of signing up in the UK, and you could be buying Bitcoin SV within 30 minutes. So it's a very quick, easy, admittedly, if I do say so myself, sexy process to be able to get access to Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Cash, and more importantly, Bitcoin SV. And I say more importantly because like the event that we just had in the last week, and people all of a sudden have a big interest
where the price went shooting up
in Bitcoin SV. The reason why we included assets such as Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash is we knew that people are eventually going to want access to flipping those coins into SV or even vice versa. They can do what it is that they like. But really and truly, we are a ecosystem and a banking ecosystem that will be growing that is a very aggressive Bitcoin SV ecosystem.
So if I decide I want to put £1,000 into Bitcoin SV, I download the app. I presumably got to have a photograph and passport and all that normal sort of KY, know your customer stuff. But then very quickly and very easily, I've got my app and I've got my Bitcoin SV if I want that on it. Now, what is it in your head that I'm going to do with it? Is it there to be spent or to be exchanged or just to be speculated on?
So right now, as to what you can do right now, it is buying and holding the asset, selling the asset. So buying and selling the asset.
So it's an investment product.
Right now, that is the section that is released. We've got investment section and we've got the introducer section. So that allows you to recommend your friends and get them involved in the ecosystem. And the way we've designed it is you earn 20% of whatever fees are accumulated, and that's indefinite. So we want to really encourage people to spread the word about Gravity, what it is that we're doing.
But what fees would I be, as a user, would I be paying?
Circa 1% right now.
Right,
so a lot of great feedback that we've got around our beta of Gravity is how close to spot our pricing has been, especially as a GBP market.
So that's a similar thing that if you invested in a Fidelity ISA or something, you'd pay 1% a year or something.
Oh, that's 1% on the transaction. It's not a per year. So we're not charging you, say, a management fee or holding your asset fee.
Oh, I see.
We've had safe cold storage solution now for 5 years. Tens of thousands.
Right. So I'd pay my 1% in turning my fiat into BSV in the first place, or then spending it on something.
Yeah, and on the platform, we're actually not charging for custody. There'll be a more sophisticated custody solution that we would be charging for, but the most basic, what we've been doing for 5 years successfully, securing coins, we don't actually charge for. So that comes with even the beta access of Gravity right now, buying and selling Bitcoin and holding your Bitcoin SV.
And what would happen if I lost my phone? What kind of recovery mechanism would there be?
So if you lost your phone, it's just a traditional recovery mechanism. You send in an email, but what we're actually working on now is utilizing the exact same automated AML KYC onboarding process that got you your account in the first place as a way of unlocking your account if that said event did happen.
Right. But Bitstocks would help me with that. I'm not just sort of out on my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And just on that, I want to elaborate on that a little bit more. If I'm speaking as, say, a CEO within this space we call Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and I've got a global view of a business that I want to build, the areas of concern for me were around support and compliance, because I want my users to have an amazing experience, and the pain points always are around support and compliance. So what we are looking at is really interesting technologies and innovative ways to break open the barriers of providing a great support service and getting as many people onboarded as possible.
Do you see the future of Bitstocks more as sort of the little guy using gravity, or your sort of multi-million pound account with the broker, the original model, or what's the balance
Anyone
between?
and everyone. The original model was a great way for us as a business to start on humble beginnings and grow, which is why as a company we've still to this date haven't taken in any outside investment. We just had a really good model that was well incentivized and has allowed us to grow to where we are today. The ecosystem is definitely our agenda, and delivering gravity is definitely our agenda, and that was fueled by delivering it to the everyday individual. Even if you want to have £1 in circulation, I want to facilitate you. And that vision goes much broader than, say, your traditional Western client. This really segues into, well, how do we integrate with people in Africa? How do we integrate with people in Asia, South America? But not just from, I want to sell you some Bitcoin and I want you to utilize Bitcoin. Well, how do we empower them to be employed by what it is that we're doing?
And how would that work?
Well, there's an incredible amount of latent potential around. Like you've got people with disabilities, you've got people who are homeless, you've got people who are pulled an unfortunate card on geographical lottery. But in terms of intellectual capacity, there's nothing separating.
Right, so there's sort of bits of work that a person can do and earn something, even if their circumstances are pretty bad, really. That's what you're saying?
Well, when I say we're building a bank, I don't mean in a traditional sense. I mean, the term of data and money being one thing is become a much more accepted view. I think data is money, money's data, and data is the new currency.
Well, that's the promise of Bitcoin, really, isn't it?
Right. So this is what my appeal is. Because with that being said, you look at how the world's been structured up until this point. Africa is a perfect example, say African Trade Union, and how much money gets funneled to France every single year. Okay, this stuff's happened, whatever. How do we move on from this? Well, if data is now becoming currency, and therefore every conscious mind on the planet is an oil field, how do you extract and allow people to extract from their oil field, which is their state of intellect, their state of understanding? And that's what interests me the most about what Bitcoin could potentially do. Now, if you have, say, virtual reality, right, that goes over so many borders, cuts down so many barriers. Someone who's homeless, for instance, why can't that person enroll themselves into the workplace? If they wanted to, from a mental standpoint, wanted to get themselves back into the work environment, what prevents them? Well, I need to look presentable, I need to have an address. There's a variety of different things, okay? If you had a digital avatar and an environment that accepts a digital avatar, you reduce that barrier.
Right, but these things don't require Bitcoin.
They don't require Bitcoin.
So
They're a lot better with Bitcoin.
are they?
Yes.
Or possibly just a lot more complicated with Bitcoin.
It depends on your approach.
Right.
It depends on your approach.
But but you are. I mean, without giving the secrets away, there's some stuff to come from Bitstocks that is in this general area of enabling people to
educate, empower, evolve.
Right.
Because if our mission was predominantly an economic one, there's so many different decisions that we could have made to really increase our financial position. If our journey is what it is, it's about delivering economic sovereignty for anyone involved within our ecosystem at a sustainable level, and a level which is legacy. I'm not building this to keep key man risk centralized around me. I'm building this to get it to a stage where I just gift it to the planet. And everyone has a responsibility, everyone has a role to play in this. And that's what kickstarts the economic engine is that we are building, is how we connect different concepts, different technologies beyond just Bitcoin together to act as one cohesive whole that makes it a human experience, something that doesn't need a huge nerdy educational barrier.
But it just sounds like you're an entrepreneur with another idea for a business here. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur with another idea. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not exactly an extension of what you're doing at the moment. It could be something completely new.
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
and I think
that's sort of criticism.
And that's where Bitcoin comes in, because
Yes.
Bitcoin allows you as an entrepreneur to think in a different way. It allows you to realize, oh, wait, that is possible. We can do this in an ethical way, which is the most important aspect, right? Because if Bitcoin's a beacon of light, great, that's one thing. But how long is it going to shine for? And what's going to prevent it from shining? And why didn't it shine before? Why hasn't it shone in 11 years? We've only had a dim light, which has allowed shadows, and then we've had orchestrated.
It's flashed anyway.
Right? Exactly. So
I like the thing that you said, where you said Bitcoin is not about money, Bitcoin is memory. What did you mean by that? It's almost like a piece of poetry.
So
you went on to say it's a space memory model or a space-time model.
Yeah. So,
I mean, in the sense that stuff gets laid down on the blockchain immutably, I suppose.
This is where I'm going to have a different, say, view than the conventional view. Okay, so you can't speak of space without time. You can't speak of time without space. Okay, so the universe is 99+% of space. We consider this to be empty in conventional science. My view is it's not empty. There's no such thing as empty space. Now, time is the recording of the movement of space. Two sides of the same coin. What is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin in terms of space is you've got a certain amount of information you can fit in a predetermined rate of time. Consider that time a square box. That square box
fitting into the block.
Yeah, fit into a block, 10-minute block.
Yeah.
Now, how much I can fit into that block of time is, in theory, infinite, right? But we as human beings put limitations on that 1 megabyte. So that limits the amount of things or particles you can have moving around.
Well, no longer, but yeah.
SV doesn't do that, right?
Right.
It's about density, 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 density. Now I've got so much density inside the same box of space-time. Well, now I'm going to have activity. Now I'm going to have things sparking, right? Now this communicates with this. There's an ecosystem happening within that space-time window. Well, you look at the science behind, say, star formations and a variety of different things, you see some commonalities. Now, what the blockchain does, what the ledger does, is it records the movement of matter, human-to-human interactions, human-to-machine interactions, machine-to-machine interactions in space. And that has a timestamp assigned to it. It's really genuinely the same model, right? It really is the same model. And what makes it interesting is that if we understand that, and you understand who you are as a biological organism, which is why I love the biological connection within Bitcoin, is right now you are acting as one whole and I'm seeing you as one whole, right? But you are comprised of like 100 trillion atoms, and then at the center of your atoms, you've got a proton. And each one of those protons has an image of your whole, right? But then what is your proton? What animates your proton? How much energy is in your proton, right? So what really animates you, Charles? Where are you extracting that energy from? So these are questions that I believe there are answers to, that I've looked into those answers. Then you're going to think, okay, well, if you're a bunch of cells and you're just spinning, right? Just say 7,000 RPM, if I could listen to you at the quantum level, I'll hear this noise, right? So how much distance do you reckon is in between those different atoms in your body?
It's mostly space, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So most of you space. So really then, when you walk from this point to that point, what am I seeing? I am seeing the dematerialization and materialization of Charles, right? If it's run through enough frames per second, I get the illusion of motion.
Right. But now bring me back to Bitcoin in this, because how does that?
So, Bitcoin, and the reason why I was going to the reference of using your body as an example, okay? Well, what materializes and dematerializes you? How do I maintain that you are Charles walking across this floor, right? Because the memory of when you dematerialize and what made you rematerialize was your memory, Charles.
Right.
And that's part of your cosmic code.
Or your memory of seeing it.
Yeah, it's your memory. It's your own cosmic memory of yourself. It's how it's how your genetic code knows how to rewrite.
Right. So what
itself.
you're sort of saying maybe is that Bitcoin has been designed with its blockchain to be a sort of mechanical, a sort of very precise mechanical model of life itself.
Yeah, and Craig's the only person who made that connection and said it's a biologically inspired. Now, whether it was to the point with which I see it and where I can see it going, I don't know. Right? I've actually asked Craig.
But we're into the
questions.
world of sort of mysticism here, really, almost,
Absolutely,
aren't
we are. Now, what makes that powerful is if we look beyond, say, the immediate 10 years of technological innovation, okay? We've got already Elon Musk speaking about things like Neuralink. So having a link to the brain, well, you combine concepts like that with what I'm speaking about on Bitcoin, okay? Right now, I'm processing this whole conversation with my conscious mind. Right? It's about 5% of my computational power. My subconscious mind is really where the info is, right?
You're talking but not thinking.
Yeah. I can't curate and articulate that.
Right.
If you can, then super genius, but I can't do that, right? So, but if you had a way of recording that information in a very safe digital black box of space-time, Bitcoin, right? And then you can utilize that information as part of your collective consciousness, not just the 5%, and
Right.
the 5% is the 100%, right?
So you're talking about a real sort of concrete, practical thing here, not just a lovely idea.
Yeah, and I speak from a place of, a childlike wonder on many different subject matters, but I've very aggressively followed a lot of these thought processes through. And I know with great degree of confidence how viable these thought processes are. And I think people look at Hollywood movies always on the view that they got their inspiration from some form of dream. Well, maybe there's way more things that we don't know about that maybe inspired the studio that made this movie. Maybe they saw some stuff. And that's never really accepted as an acceptable view. And what makes me super excited about really a variety of different things that are happening on the planet right now is that we're at such an interesting point where a lot of these crazy technological ideas, concept, innovations are really breaking through the surface now. And I think there should be people out there who are thinking about combining these things in interesting ways, because I would much rather have an artificial intelligence world with Bitcoin than to have one without Bitcoin. But yeah.
Well, that's absolutely amazing, Michael. Thank you so much. And I think that the debate here will be whether your ideas are part of economics, whether they're a sort of a work of art, or whether they're part of science,
Or batshit crazy.
or a bit of both. but it's been really fascinating. So thank you so
It's always
much.
a pleasure, Charles.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks very much to Michael Hudson. And the latest from Bitstocks is that the rollout of Gravity from the UK to the rest of the world begins with its availability in Europe from the 1st of April. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we'd be very grateful if you'd leave some positive comments, whether you're watching or listening, as this helps us reach more people in future. Until next week, goodbye for now.